Mickey Spagnola will be joining us from the Star in Frisco, and you can get involved. Send us your tweet, Ask Mickey. It's a hashtag Ask Mickey. All right, the Cowboys are 3-3 after the convincing win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Washington is up next. Big game in Washington. Let's bring in Mickey Spagnola. He's at the Star in Frisco. Mickey, I got to start with the offense because that was the best performance by the offense by far. What I saw and what I liked a lot was Dak getting involved. I think that opens up the running game. It opens up the passing game. What did you see a little different out of the offense?
Well, first of all, I thought, and you know, I've been harping on this probably for 5 weeks, that the offensive line had to play better. And I thought, here they are going up against the #1 defense in the National Football League in Jacksonville, the #1 pass defense, and they have their best game collectively, I think, across the 5. So that allowed other things to take place. The other thing that I think happened was the Cowboys used Jacksonville's aggressiveness against them. So they wanted to overplay the run to stop Zeke initially. They were crashing their defensive ends. So the Cowboys were able to run some bootlegs, some read options, and allowed Dak to keep the ball because of the way Jacksonville was playing. It wasn't like they, you know, he had 11 runs for 82 yards. Well, I went back and looked at it, and I only counted 4 or 5 that were called runs for Dak. The rest were either he was trying to escape trouble out of the pocket or basically he read Zeke and said, okay, I'm going to keep this. But it wasn't like a bunch of called runs. And I think that's what everybody thought. Oh, well, the Cowboys told Dak Prescott to run 11 times. That wasn't the case. They took advantage of how Jacksonville played, especially when they played West so much man-to-man coverage. That takes everybody downfield, and if you don't have anybody open, it's a lot easier to get outside the pocket and run for 10, 12 yards before somebody catches up with you. So I think it was a combination of things, but first and foremost, that offensive line played much better.
All right, well, let's stick with that part of it. Was there anything in particular about the offensive line that made you think, all right, they're getting better? What exactly was it about the line?
Well, I thought there were fewer missed assignments. It wasn't like the week before against Houston. We talked about how they had Blake Jarwin late in the 4th quarter running wide open down the right sideline, and they're going to throw a touchdown pass basically and win the game. And unfortunately, J.J. Watt looped inside. No one picked him up. They had a missed assignment, and Dak gets sacked, so he never gets the play off, the ball off to throw it. So I thought they did a better job of that. They did a better job moving, and they've been doing this a little bit more. You know, kind of the old student body right, student body left, running those sweeps. Because I still say their offensive linemen are better when they're on the move than when they're just trying to power up and go forward. And I think that plays into some of Joe Looney's strengths. It plays into Connor Williams' strength, and we know what Zach Martin can do. So they got more Zeke on the edge. Which got them thinking about the edge, and then the middle opened up. And the other thing that took place with the blocking, Wes, where the tight ends did a much better job. If you noticed on Dak's run for the touchdown, leading the way out there were Jeff Swain and Blake Jarwin, who actually got 2 guys with 1 block and cleared the way the rest of the way for the, what was it, 16, 17-yard touchdown run. So I thought that had a part to do with it also.
Okay, Mickey, you mentioned the man-to-man. How big of a part was that in Cole Beasley getting open? He seems to thrive in man-to-man. Is that a big reason for what we saw, those numbers from Cole Beasley?
Well, in the first half it was, and I think he ended up catching 6 passes of his 9 or 11 in the first half. And they thought that Tyler Patman, who had been here kind of as a backup cornerback, nickel guy, could take Cole Beasley one-on-one in the slot. Now, I could have told him that wasn't going to work, and it didn't work. He wore out Tyler Patman, and then they made adjustments in the second half, basically, and said, you know what, we're going to bring the safety down, and we're going to bring the middle linebacker and bring him over and bracket, so we make sure that Cole Beasley is not the sole responsibility for beating us. You know, and he still caught his passes in the second half. But as Cole said, he goes, you know, I went to the sideline, I said, hey, guys, they're running that middle linebacker at me. I'm not going to last the game if this continues. And so they changed up their coverage a little bit in the second half. But take the linebacker and say, okay, we're going to move him over here a few steps to help out with Beasley. Then you start handing Zeke the ball up the middle, and he's not in the same spot he's been in, and that leaves a bigger gap up the middle. So it all kind of worked hand in hand. But again, you know, if you had asked me, and I've been asked before the season even began, who do you think is going to be the Cowboys' leading wide receiver? And I said it's going to be Cole Beasley. You know, when Dez was hurt in 2016, you know, he was the guy that stepped up. He was the guy that led the team in reception. So why not again this year? And he's kind of on the path to doing so.
Flip side to the ball and go to the defense. 7 points allowed by this defense, and I thought the defensive line was dominant, Mickey. They were all over Blake Bortles. What do you see on the tape looking at this defensive line?
Yeah, absolutely, and they were so deep, so they were rotating guys in. I don't think anybody, they played 48 snaps on defense. No one played more than 24 snaps, so half the snaps from the front, the defensive linemen. So I thought that had a lot to do with it. I think you saw what sort of difference David Irving can be back when he gets out there. He was supposed to play 10 to 15 snaps, and he laughed when we told him that before the game on Friday. He said, yeah, we'll see how long that lasts once Marinelli kind of gets his hands on me. He ended up playing 22 snaps, and he made a difference. You saw what Randy Gregory can do when you have to concentrate more on the inside, and he's on the outside in nickel situations. And so I think a combination of that with DeMarcus Lawrence not having to play every snap due to his shoulder injury, and they wanted to make sure that he didn't do too much in rundowns, but make sure he's out there in pass downs. Dorrance Armstrong, the rookie defensive end, got his first start on the left side, thought he played well. So again, and I shouldn't forget this, Malik Collins was back. Remember, he had missed the previous 3 games with a sprained knee, and you saw him get a sack. So you put him in the rotation in there with Crawford in the middle and David Irving. And I think you saw them dominate, and you're exactly right. And that touchdown was the first touchdown they had given up in 6 quarters, if you go back to the Houston game, and overtime. So they were pitching a shutout and would have if it wasn't for that one drive that took place.
Mickey, you talked about the number of plays for Jacksonville, offensive plays for Jacksonville. Is that a low number? Is that kind of typical, or is that typical in the NFL? That just seems like a small amount.
No, yeah, Wes, average would be 60, so that is a small amount. And you know, they were getting off the field. They were stopping them. And the other thing that took place is the Cowboys on a couple possessions just hog the football. The other thing that will reduce your number of plays is if you have takeaways or turnovers in back-to-back plays, and that's what happened when the Cowboys got their 2 takeaways with the fumble recovery and the interception. It happened on back-to-back plays, so it happened on the last play of that possession and the first play of the next possession, and that'll cut down on how many plays you run overall.
Like a recipe for a 40-7 win. They just need to do that each week, right?
Well, yeah, and especially on the road, and we'll find out what happens going forward here, going to Washington. As Zeke properly pointed out after the game, he said, if we can't win on the road, we're not going to make the playoffs, meaning, well, no better than 8-8 if we lose all the road games. And so it was good that they were cognizant of the fact that, okay, this can't be a one-hit wonder. We got to carry this over to next week and be able to go into Washington and win a game on the road, which they haven't. They've won 3 at home, 3 on the road. And so the defense needs to continue to play like that. And I'm not saying the offense, you know, needs to score 40 points, the way they did. But let's get into the mid-20s at least, and much better than what their average was in the games that they had lost on the road. The 3 games they lost on the road, they were averaging 12.3 points a game. That ain't going to get it. So get into the mid-20s and you give yourself a chance to win, especially the way the defense is playing.
What's the latest on Sean Lee, and what's the plan for Sean Lee once he gets back?
Well, the latest would be he's still rehabbing, and Wes, God bless him. I don't know if I can properly explain how hard it was raining here yesterday. The wind was blowing. It was coming down sideways. And guess who had his helmet on and his jersey on and was doing his rehab outside on the field? It was Sean Lee. He's doing his resistance work on the cords with the associate trainer, Britt Brown. He's running his sprints out there. He's doing everything he can to get back. Now, I didn't see him do anything laterally, and when you have a hamstring, you know, you got to push off. But judging from the way he's running, I think he's going to try and give himself a chance to play this week. If not, and if they don't feel like he's 100%, then, you know, you give him the game off. Next week's a bye, and then when they play Tennessee, it's even pushed back a little further because it's a Monday night game. So he would have 3 more weeks to continue strengthening that hamstring. Jason Garrett pointed out with him that, look, there's only 16 games, and if the guy's good enough to go, you don't sit there and say, well, let's hold him out 1 more week. You go ahead and play him. But if he's not, well, then the reason why they've been able to win 2 of the 3 games without Sean Lee on the field has been the play of rookie Leighton Vander Esch and also Jalen Smith. I think those 2 guys have stepped up incredibly, and they're leading the team in tackles now. Leighton has 60. Jalen Smith has 57. He's showing the more he plays, the better he can get. Leighton Vander Esch, and Jalen Smith is showing you that the Cowboys are starting to win their bet using a 2nd-round pick and a guy whose knee was in really bad shape come the draft a couple years ago.
So I got to wonder, what's the linebacker situation look like when Sean Lee is healthy and back?
I think they get back to their rotation that they originally had going there in the 2nd and 3rd game, where nobody has to play every defensive snap, where no one has to play 3/4 of the defensive snap. You keep rotating those guys through in different roles. You play some guy on standard defense. You play 2 of the guys when they go to nickel, and just rotate them. That was the idea, to try to keep everybody healthy. And I think that's what they would go back to doing. The other thing about being cozy with Sean Lee and saying, well, maybe we don't need him back here. Joe Thomas has suffered a bad foot injury, didn't play this last game, and it didn't sound like he was going to be back anytime soon, so that cuts into your depth. So if you get Sean Lee back, you get back to that 3-man depth rotation, taking care of the middle linebacker spot and the weak side linebacker spot. And when you change up from nickel to maybe the 3-man down lineman rush in their other nickel situation, you can rotate those guys through. So I think that's what takes place when he gets back.
All right, we got to finish on special teams, and I'll find something wood to knock on. But Brett Maher, I mean, that guy is becoming Mr. Automatic. He comes in, and I'm starting to expect him to make everything. What is his confidence level like right now?
Oh, it's sky high, I'll guarantee you. And I think what happened there at the end of the game, the 4th field goal he made, it's like they didn't really need those 3 points. You know, they could have said, oh, it's a 55-yard field goal. Let's just punt, pin them back, and not give them anything cheap. If they score, they're going to have to drive the length of the field. And then I think they thought, you know what? Let's see what he can do from 55, because that may come up when we really need one. He crushed it, right? So he's made 15 consecutive field goals after he missed the first one, and he's unflappable. It's amazing that a guy in his first year in the National Football League is kicking the ball so accurately. Now, I think what people need to understand is he's not just a young kid, and I heard Jim Nantz say the Cowboys have found themselves a really good young kicker. Well, he's going to be 29 years old next month. You know, he did a lot of kicking in the Canadian Football League. As a matter of fact, in 2013, he kind of he was here in the offseason kind of as a kicker, punter, to save the other guy's legs. So he's been around knocking on the door, trying to get a chance, and all of a sudden the opportunity opened up for him when the Cowboys kind of lost confidence in Dan Bailey and brought him aboard. You know, when we sit here and we talk about who's important in the game, who gets a game ball, and you go through Zeke and Dak and the guys on defense, and then you get to and you go, oh yeah, that Brett Maher guy, he made 4 field goals, and he's made 15 straight. So yeah, not bad job by a guy in his first year in the NFL.
Mickey, thank you as always. Maybe next Tuesday we're talking about a road win for the first time this season. It's been win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. Hopefully, maybe they'll break that streak.
Time to get off the roller coaster.
Yeah. See you next Tuesday, Mickey. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
That's your Silver Star Interactive for this week. Join us next Tuesday, same time, 3 o'clock. Mickey Spagnola, I'm Wes Moore. Thank you for watching.